Hey everybody, Mike Shreeve here. Today we're going to be talking about how to be authentic. The reason that matters, why is the No Pants talking about being authentic? Two things are happening right now. One, selling inauthentically is getting very difficult to do. And number two, when you build your business, you need to have some measurement or some guide to take you in the right direction for what it is that you're trying to do. In other words, what are you building this business around? Well, you're building this business around yourself. Well, what does that mean to build something around yourself? What decision-making systems and what baseline standards can we set for ourselves if we don't know what it means to be authentic? Now, I will say, I think most definitions of the word authentic are complete garbage. Because really, there's a lot of people who make a lot of money trying to teach people how to be authentic. Well, let me give you the short version of how to be authentic. You be yourself, right? So the problem isn't the act of authenticity. Toss in some, Mel Robbins-esque 5-second rule courage. So just be yourself and have the courage to do so. And you understand the mechanism of being authentic. The problem is knowing the self, knowing basically who we are trying to be authentic to. So that's what we're going to talk about. And this is going to help you sell better. And this is also going to help you build a more authentic to you business. And hopefully it'll help you in your life as well, because business is life, right? So it's all the same. Now, I have noticed that there are 3 versions of the self that we need to consider before we just run out and start being something out in the marketplace. One is the now self, okay? The now self is concerned with things like money in the bank. It's concerned with comfort. And it's mostly directed by fear. Okay? So let's think about that for a second. The now self are the decisions that you're making right now. It is the short-term, immediate goals that you have for your life right now. When you are thinking about making a video like this, to create content, to attract people, it is the conversation you have in your mind, and I'll just give you my example. I can't quite figure out the lighting on these videos yet because I'm not good at lighting. So I've put this video off. I'm looking at the shadow of my arm on the page here, and I'm all worried, this is the now self. So being authentic to that is doing what I just did and telling you that that's what's going on. It's the idea of money. Is this video going to make money? Am I doing the things that's going to make money? It's all the stuff. It's the desire for comfort. So procrastination, a tendency to stay in your comfort zone. That's all you. There's this really weird idea that somehow, if you could just be a different person, things would be better. What I'm telling you is that you can't be a different person. You are you. You are the human that is you. You can improve certain things, but you're not going to ever get a transplant out of who you are currently into some new body and new experience. And so authenticity to this now self is all about, in my opinion, for the now person, it's all about honesty. Now, this is honesty in a variety of different ways. So, honesty in terms of the tool that you can use to be more aware of what's going on. So, my awareness of the resistance to do this video is because I know the lighting is off. It doesn't look good. It doesn't make me look great. I don't have the right size marker for this. It's probably hard to read. You can see the shadows going on. And my honesty to myself, to understand that that's what's going on. So that I can be aware of my desire for comfort and to avoid what might be the social, people being like, the video doesn't look good. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And so in my mind, being aware of all of those conversations that are going on, my authenticity to myself is to expose those ideas to myself so that I can be aware. Now, the second piece of honesty here is to be honest. So let me actually step back here for a second. This is the big one I wanted to talk about, honesty about money, right? Like a lot of us, and I do include myself in this, we will forget to be critically honest with ourselves about our financial situations. I've done this many times in my business where expenses have continually crept up, but I wasn't being honest about the scope creep in terms of the financial picture, the profit getting lower. Now, financially we're doing fine. I'm totally doing better than I've ever done in my whole life, but I was being dishonest about what was actually happening. And I was being dishonest about, what team members are we adding and are they actually contributing? And is this a good investment, or am I just being comfortable about myself and saying it's a good investment? Because if I told myself it was a bad investment, then I'd have to deal with the fact that it's a bad investment, right? So the being authentic to the now self is really about being aware enough that this stuff is going on. The second piece of that is, and I see this so often with freelancers, is they will pretend to be something that they aren't. They will say that they're a bigger company than they are. They will overstate their expertise. I just did this recently. I hired this person. It was a complete waste of money. Total waste of money. I'm so upset at myself that I fell for it, even though I knew it was happening. I wasn't honest with myself as it was happening, because I thought to myself, just exactly what I said, I didn't want to deal with the fact that it was maybe not a good investment. So this person was talking about how they had helped all these different people, and were saying that they were bigger than they really were because they wanted to charge an exorbitant amount of money. Well, it turns out that after I had signed the contract, or I should have done this before I signed the contract, but after I signed the contract, I found out that most of those people did not attribute any of their success to this particular person, and I found that out only afterwards. So part of honesty isn't just like having honest dealings with your fellow man, but part of honesty is saying, look, I've never done this before. Or, for example, being honest about the fact that I don't know how to set up video, right? And just telling you guys, hey guys, I don't know how to set up video. I'm using an iPhone and a tripod and this thing, and who knows, like some openness about your current situation rather than a reservedness and trying to hide the truth. You will find, Mel Robbins was one of my favorite clients I've ever worked with in 100 years, and will be for 100 years more. Not that I've been around for 100 years, but just I don't think she'll ever top how much fun I had working with someone and how much that affected me as a person, just being able to be around her. One of the things that I loved about her is that in her content that she created, and I think why so many people were attracted to her, is that she was so brutally open and honest. And I don't think she viewed it as a selling process. And I don't think the people who followed her saw it as a selling process. But she was selling people like crazy by being honest. Now, the word selling has a negative connotation. People think it's a bad thing. But what she was doing was getting people on her side. She was able to be on the level with other fellow humans, and then when she would talk about what it was that she wanted to talk about, when she was introducing ideas or pushing her book or doing whatever it was she was doing, she had already sold people on the idea of her by being more honest. And most of her honesty was about the tough times and the failure and the things that were going wrong. So how to be authentic, one is you have to be honest with yourself, and two, be honest and open about how you aren't a perfect person and how your service isn't perfect and how you aren't the most experienced person. And I think what you will find is people will be very attracted to you in the content you create, in your daily emails, in your daily podcasts, whatever it is. Talk about the good times and the bad times, okay? Now, so there's the now person, authenticity now. Then there is the, let's do this one first here. This is the before person. The before person is really about identity, and we'll talk about it here in a second. Identity and really the past. So these are both kind of the same thing, but the before person is who you were. Who were you in high school? Who were you in when you first got married? Who were you early on in your relationship? And I think what is interesting about people trying to be authentic is they don't honor or take ownership, okay? So if the now person is all, and being authentic to the now is all about honesty, the before person is all about ownership. Let me give you an example. I was homeless. I have done the internal work and have in the No Pants Project shared this past of mine. The identity of who I used to be, the things that occurred, and owning that internally has then shaped not only how I interact with the world, walking down the street and interacting with other people, but also how I market my business. I am authentically telling you, I was homeless at one point. I've been on food stamps before. I'm not proud of it. You don't have to be proud of something to own it. You don't have to even think it was a good thing to own it. I do not think being homeless was good. I don't think anyone should be homeless. I remember one time somebody on Facebook was trolling one of our ads and saying that like I'm somehow celebrating homelessness. I am not celebrating homelessness. I don't want anyone to be homeless. I don't think anybody should be homeless. Sure, I learned some lessons, but I probably could have learned those lessons in a way less stressful, way less telomere stripping way than I did doing this. So there's that aspect of ownership, but then the other aspect of ownership is one where nobody ever finds out about it. It's just the internal work that you do. So for example, taking ownership and looking at my life as to what are the steps I took to get into that situation, and doing the work of thinking through how I got there. Most people in their desire to be authentic don't take ownership of their before. And so what happens is they're trying to, which we'll talk about later, they're trying to create this identity. They're trying to create this persona of authenticity, and they're missing the key ingredient, which is your actual identity, which is shaped in large part by what you've experienced up to this point. So they're basically trying to create something brand new with no base. They're trying to take a trip somewhere and they don't know where they are right now. So part of the authenticity process is taking a look at the before person, taking ownership of your identity and understanding where you're starting from and understanding how that's going to affect where you want to go, which is the later. Okay, so the later person is focused on goals. The later version of yourself is focused on becoming. And oftentimes, the later version of any person's self is a best case scenario. And this is something that we don't really talk about that often. But I don't think anybody really, when they're thinking about how can I be, what am I going to be like in the future, I don't think people truly think through all the case scenarios that could potentially happen. Now, obviously, some people are more pessimistic about the future, but even then, I don't think they fully understand all the case scenarios. So when we're thinking about authenticity and how do we live a more authentic life, and then how do we market our business more authentically, we have the now, which is all about honesty. We have the before, which is all about ownership. The later is all about hope. A goal and becoming someone and thinking about the best case scenario is nothing more than what you hope things will be. Now, we'll talk about later, but I want to make sure that we're connecting how this all works in building authenticity. It is the appropriate application of all three selves that create the most authentic version of you. Because you are not any one of these things. You are simultaneously 24/7 all three of these things at once. Which means honesty, ownership, and hope are your tools to becoming an authentic person and marketing your business with authenticity. Let me give you some examples for the later version of yourself or the future version of yourself. This video right now, I'm making videos. I know that these videos are not good right now. I understand that the podcast that we do, it's decent, but it's going to be, I hope it's going to be, so much unbelievably better in the future than it is right now. Therefore, my authenticity in authentically marketing my business is to start making the videos now, even though I know they're imperfect. The dishonoring of my later self. So to be inauthentic to my later self. In other words, to be inauthentic to my goals and dreams would be to suppress the beginning stages of this process. In other words, by not doing the videos, by not doing the podcast, by not doing the content, I am not hoping. I am not honoring the goals that I might have in the future. It's like, there's a lot of reasons why I don't teach people fiction. I love fiction. I don't teach people fiction. There's a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is because I find a lot of people who want to write fiction are really good at the now and living in the now, and they're really good at the before. So they identify themselves as writers because when they were in high school, they wrote an essay and their teacher loved it and said they could be a writer, right? They're very good at honoring that. They're very good at the no. They're very sort of they understand that they have fear and they but very few of them are willing to write bad work and share it publicly, which in a lot of ways is inauthentic because it is dishonoring. It is ignoring, it is not being true to the goals and dreams that they actually have. You have to ignore, you have to push away, you have to eject the goals that you have. So if you want to be a six-figure freelancer, but you are not doing the things required to be a six-figure freelancer, even if you're doing them badly, even if it means being uncomfortable, even if it means looking goofy like this. I'm sure in 5 years I'm going to look back on this video and probably laugh out loud how bad the lighting was. Why was I wearing that shirt? Why is the audio so bad? Why am I doing it with the whatever's going on back there? The closet doors open. I'm doing it in my home office. I'm not even doing it at the office downtown, But the more I wait, the less authentic I am to myself. And I think you may have felt this before in your life. The less authentic you are with yourself, there's almost like a mistrust of self that builds up. And you begin to have these temporary sparks of energy of like, I'm going to do this thing. But then you start to doubt yourself like, you're probably not going to do this thing. Right? It's sort of like maybe you buy a program and you get really excited about the program, and then 2 or 3 days later you kind of jump to something else and you think, you know what, never mind. That isn't what I was going to do. And you start to come up with all these excuses. Of course, there's the Kelly and O'Connor emotional cycle of change, but there's also this other thing which happens, and it's that the more inauthentic you are to yourself, the less yourself trusts you. And so it's very easy for you to not believe yourself. Your beliefs are based off of evidences that you find consistent in the world around you. There's a really good book called Atomic Habits. He makes a really good point about this. Basically, one of the ways to improve your habits, which a habit is more or less the default go-to system that your body and mind and spirit and all these sorts of things use to deal with common problems that arise. So for example, when you're hungry, that's a problem. If your habit is to go get junk food, that's the system and solution that you've determined to solve that problem. Well, if all that's true, then, and those habits are based off of your beliefs that you believe that's the best system that you have, you need to change the beliefs. The way you change the beliefs is you change the evidence. Now, instead of going out and trying to, and we're totally on a side tangent here of habits, but instead of going out and trying to change your habits overnight, he suggests just start to develop more and more evidence. So this is where instead of flossing, like if you want to start to floss, instead of trying to floss all of your teeth all at once and start that habit and floss twice a day, just literally every night floss one tooth. What happens over time is your mind begins to say, oh, you're kind of the person who flosses, aren't you? Like, I see that you continually floss every day, and all of a sudden the habit of flossing becomes easier because now you do 1 and 2 and 3 teeth, and then 5 teeth, and then 10 teeth, and the evidence builds up that you're the kind of person who flosses their teeth. Okay, so that was the long way around of me basically saying the more you ignore moving towards your goals, even if you're moving poorly towards them, but you're moving towards them, the more that you do that, the more you allow hope to thrive in your life, the more evidence will accumulate, and you will eventually develop the habit of authenticity around hope. In other words, the future version of yourself. So let me give you a personal example. I know that these videos are not great. They're not high production quality. The audio is not great. The lighting's weird. I have horrible handwriting. I know all of these things. I'm perfectly aware that this is not the best thing ever. However, what I am developing now is the evidence that I am the kind of person who cranks out really good video and audio content. Now, that may not be true right now, but it will be true because I'm going to be sending this out to the YouTubes, and we're going to be running it on our podcast. We'll send it out to our email list, and what's going to happen is someone is going to be a kind person and say, that was a great whatever. That was a great training, Mike. Thank you. I love these. I hope you keep doing them. That evidence will go into my subconscious, and I'll continue to do them. And I will improve over time. I'll learn how to do better lighting. I'll learn how to do better audio. I'll learn how to create better lessons that aren't maybe 30 minutes long every single time that poor people have to sit through and listen to. But I would be inauthentic by avoiding this altogether because I want the influence that comes from being really good at content like this, right? So that all plays into these other elements as well. Part of my ownership and owning my past is, I have self-image issues, right, from stuff that happened in my past. So I have to have ownership and be authentic about the way that I'm doing this. I'm not going to try and dress in a different way than I am. I have to dress the way that I'm going to dress. I have to be honest about my abilities and my skills and how does this play in and how much time can I devote to it. And so the idea of how to be authentic is really an issue of figuring out the balance between the now self, the later self, and the before self. And the way that you find that balance is not through sitting and thinking about it for 10 minutes. It's about going out and doing stuff. And then in your journal, processing what you've learned through the action of being authentic. You don't be authentic by thinking about being authentic. You be authentic by being authentic in the act of being and becoming. So hopefully this sparked some ideas for you and your business on how you can more authentically sell, right? Obviously, we talked a little bit about what you can talk about in authenticity, but also if you love podcasts and don't want to do video, or you love something and in the future self, you see yourself with whatever that is, be true to that. Don't try and just jump onto somebody else's bandwagon because that's what they're doing. Be true to who you want to become. Look at look at the goals that you have and then look at where you're at right now and look at where you've come from and your identity, and then sort of figure out how to marry that all together in your own business. So hopefully you've been able to get some ideas on how to use this to help to sell your business, but also hopefully you take this as an opportunity to learn some things about yourself, because at the end of the day, business is nothing more than the consequences of what's going on inside your mind. You cannot have a high-functioning business and be a low-functioning person. That just, unfortunately, that's not how it works. Okay, my friends, that is it for this lesson. I hope that you enjoyed it. And again, next time we might have different lighting. Next time we might have a different setup. Next time I'll probably be in my office. Who knows? But it's all part of the process of authenticity, of just putting yourself out there, perfect or not, and iteration, getting the evidence, developing the habits, and moving towards a hope. So that's it, my dear friends, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.